What's up, everybody? This is Purple After Dark, part of the Purple Daily Empire of Daily Vikings Entertainment. From the TCL studios, enjoy more of what you love with TCL, and presented by Surly Brewing, the official. Go ahead. Have you cracked that one already?
Oh, of course
Judd?
I have.
Oh, I was waiting for the sound effect there.
So I stopped today, got a variety pack at the old liquor store, the Surly variety pack. So this is my go-to, right? Like the ace of my staff. If I had a Surly,
This is the Max Scherzer of the Surly?
Yeah, exactly right.
The Tom Brady?
Yeah, exactly right. So that's the staple. But sometimes you got to call a Surly in from the bullpen, Phil Mackey. And so who comes trotting in but Mean Streets?
Wow.
So what I've got now, a variety pack, because I'm taking my relationship with Surly to new heights. All right, I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Well, Sebastian Cole noticed that. He says Judd is high right now. By the way,
actually, I'm not. I'm. You know what? I'm a beer guy. I'm not smoking pot.
Well, he's high on Jake Browning, I think, is what's been happening this week.
And sunburned too, Phil. I'm sunburned as well.
So this is Daily Vikings Entertainment. This is Purple Daily, and we're going to dive into Judd's been at camp all week, a Kirk Cousins-less camp. He'll be back tomorrow, and that'll be a whole thing. Be interesting. So we'll get Judd's latest observations. We've obviously been panicking about a lot of stuff, including the offensive line. At some point, I want to get your three biggest positive takeaways from a very negative week, mostly around the Vikings. But we do have an announcement here, and if you're hanging out with us, this is Purple After Dark. We're doing this a couple times a week, live on the Purple Daily YouTube channel, also live on Score North tonight, anyways, live on Score North Twitter, and we can see your comments, and we will bring them into the comment section here, and we'll respond to them. But we have a pretty cool announcement. Like we don't. Judd and I have been doing a show together, be it podcast and YouTube or be it radio on the old school 1500 ESPN for about 7.5 years, and this is probably like the most positive reinforcement we've ever gotten from the industry on our show today. So we found out today that Purple Daily was nominated as a national finalist for a Marconi Award. So the Marconi Awards recognize the Marconi Awards are presented by the National Association of Broadcasters. And ordinarily, up until a few years ago, they just recognized the top radio personalities, the top radio stations and shows across the country. And they added a podcast category a few years ago. And this year, there are 5 finalists for the National Marconi Award Podcast of the Year. Clay Travis is one of them, by the way. So we're gonna have to fight out Clay Travis.
We're a little bit different than Clay Travis. I'll give us that.
And also Hubbard's own Garage Logic, which was also on 1500 ESPN for 25 or 30 years. But Purple Daily was nominated as a finalist, and we're pretty blown away by that. And I think it's a huge testament not only to just how charming and amazing we clearly are on a daily basis.
It's the beards.
Clearly. But I think it's a testament to B, how entertaining and interesting the Vikings are no matter what, and C, you guys who watch and listen to this show on a daily basis have made it such a fun community, whether it's YouTube comments or social media. We obviously do the show every day, but we just feel like there's a great second level of discussion and bantering and making fun of, and just like it legitimately feels like a club, and we're just happy to be the ringleaders of this club, and our mission stays the same every day. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
Amen.
So
exactly right.
Yeah,
and
pretty cool.
I think too, a key thing is this, and Phil, I think we thought this for a long time, and it's come true, and I appreciate it. I think a lot of people think like we do about the Vikings, which is having them be successful is fun. We want them to win a Super Bowl, but you don't always just have to be Mr. or Mrs. Positive. Like it's fun to discuss the flaws and the good things and the bad things, and not necessarily have our Vikings pom-poms out, which for a long time, I think in this town, it was like, okay, but is that accurate? And I think this show has proven that. And that does not mean that it's fun to rip them, but it does mean that it's fun to have critical conversations at times that bring up the good and bad. And I appreciate the fact that a lot of you out there agree completely. So thank you
Yeah.
for that.
And I think the other thing too is like when we do get too far out of our minds, being whether it's negative or we're just focused on the doom and gloom that's been 60 years of Vikings football. Like it's cool that our audience will push out. They'll either push back at us or they'll check us or say, all right, you guys, let's calm down on the panic. Like
Absolutely.
it legitimately is a two-way street. And RU21 Phil, he says Phil is drinking melted butter in that cup. How'd you know, dude? How did you know that this was melted butter? That's what I drink. It's my nightcap every night. Just melted garlic butter. It's great.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's good for the heart. Clears those veins out, no question. So what's in your glass?
It's a non-sanctioned drink here, but it does have some diesel behind it.
Okay, good.
I'll tell you that much.
Well, you know what is sanctioned? That's right.
Surly Mean Street.
This is actually really good. First time, I love it.
By the way, people wondering where Declan is, he'll probably jump in a little bit later here. We fired this up earlier than we initially thought, and Declan will join us at some point here. So let's dive in. So we'll get into. I've got some more offensive line panic, and I'd love to know what we think the vibe is around Kirk Cousins returning tomorrow. But in a mostly negative, tumultuous week for the Vikings,
yes.
What are like three things that stood out on the bright side? Let's start with the glass half full here before we take our medicine.
All right, let's talk about football things that don't involve quarterbacks. I feel like we've talked about Cousins a ton. That's bad. Browning's been good, but we've talked about that a ton. So I'm going to give you three things independent of the actual quarterbacks, okay? Number one, I can't tell you this enough, and it was the same story again today. Irv Smith Jr. looks fantastic. And I know I've started to sound like a broken record with that one, but if you play fantasy football, draft him. He is, every day, man, he looks great. I think he's dropped one pass all camp. But he's been a target time after time after time. And I told Dex this a couple days back, Phil. I feel like we in this town get, and especially for this offense, we fall in love too much with who's the third wide receiver, right? Who's gonna be WR3? And the reality is it's Jefferson, Thielen, and in this offense, if that's Gary Kubiak or Clint, I think the third guy is your best receiving tight end. Irv Smith Jr. looks bigger. He looks in great shape. Any, let's say, impediment to him being the top guy, a guy who might say, I want my catches too, is gone. So that's my top one. And that's one of my top ones of camp. I'm telling you, this is a breakout year. If this guy stays healthy, he looks fantastic. Let's not be concerned about, well, can he block too? Tyler Conklin can block, okay? This is going to be, here's my prediction. I think this is going to be the first year that we see the Vikings employ Irv Smith and a tight end where he pushes much closer to the Travis Kelce group. Not saying he's there, but I am saying, I think for a long time we've been like, tight ends now can be hybrid receivers too, but the Vikings don't really do that enough. I think they're going to.
So I feel like there is a second tier of tight ends right now that's largely up for grabs. We've seen like Gronk has kind of moved out, like he retired for a year or whatever, and he's moved out of the top tier. And I think the top tier is Kittle, Kelce, for sure. Mm-hmm. That's probably it. I think you could probably put Darren Waller, I'm blanking on his name, the Vegas
he's
tight end.
Yes.
I don't know that at this point. I feel like if Irv was going to be in that top tier at some point in his career, it would have showed more by now. But some of it might have been like he just wasn't getting opportunities. So do you think by the end of the year he's going to be, whether it's from a fantasy perspective or just like a real football perspective, is he going to be solidly in that second tier of NFL tight ends?
That's my
Is that
prediction.
what you're kind of saying?
Yes. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be. So that top tier is elite guys. I don't know that he's going to get the opportunity to move into that pretty much rare tight end air, but he's going to be in the second group. If he stays healthy, he is going to catch, I think, a ton of passes. He's going to catch touchdowns. And when Kirk was playing, Irv Smith was a primary target. He's going to be a fantastic, if nothing else, bailout option. And so, yes, I think he is going to be, by the time the season is done, if things go as planned, I think he is definitively in that second tier and probably at least a Pro Bowl player.
Yeah. I mean, he looks the part. Like, it's amazing
He
when
looks
you
the
can,
part now more than he did previously too.
Kyle Rudolph, all due respect, nice little decade-long career with the Vikings, some of the best red zone hands you're going to find in the NFL, but like that dude would trip over the 20-yard line. Like he couldn't jump over a phone book. Like even when he was in his prime, didn't he tear, was it one or both hamstrings at Notre Dame?
There was one off the bone, I know, because
Yeah.
it was very serious.
I mean, so he came in with major leg and lower body injuries, but then like Irv Smith, when he comes in the game and gets some of the same routes, he's one of the fastest tight ends, it looks like, just eye test in the NFL. Breaks tackles more. Like it just looks like, especially yards after the catch. I mean, Kyle Rudolph wasn't stumbling for many yards after the catch. So there seems to be so much more upside there with Irv Smith. All right, what's the second glass half full thing from an otherwise mostly week for the Vikings?
The second thing is the development and maturation. Wide receiver KJ Osborne looks fantastic. Now, the interesting thing is D.D. Westbrook has been at every practice, and he has returned some punts and worked on that, but he has not really participated much as far as catching passes.
Yeah.
The Vikings were in full pads again for a second consecutive day, and so he was basically a spectator. But KJ Osborne made another diving catch today. KJ Osborne's taken that step from I'm sort of a cocky rookie draft pick and I'm going to be good. And it's like, well, kid, actually, you're not that good. You think you're good to, oh, I've got a lot of work to do. So that's my second one. He is going to make the roster, but don't be surprised if he actually, I don't know if he would supplant Westbrook, but don't be surprised if he plays more than we think. I really like him. He's athletic. I think he worked his butt off, and he now looks like we probably unfairly thought he might look last year. So that's my second one. But I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. And Westbrook not playing is opening up an opportunity more at receiver, and I don't think he's disappointed much at all.
I feel like no matter who the number 3 wide receiver is, Irv Smith should get the third most targets.
And I think he will. I think he will. I'm just saying, if Jefferson, hopefully not, or Thielen get hurt, KJ Osborne strikes me as a guy right now who looks like he could step in, and you wouldn't be screwed.
Yeah. Wait, whose music do I hear? Whose music do I hear? By God, that's Declan Goff's music.
Yeah, that's right. So I was getting my shoe shine down the street because a couple Marconi winners now. You gotta make sure you're presented right. So I was just down the street at the old haberdashery. I was making sure the shoes were all shined up and ready to go. So
attaboy. That's right. That's right. A lot of people call us MFers, but MFer has a new meaning now. It's no longer that type of MFer. It's Marconi finalist.
That's right.
You refer to us as MFers. We are Marconi finalists. Thank you very much.
An executive MFer kind of has a good ring to it. I actually don't really hate that at all.
It looks like Amit M. I don't want to butcher. Is it Mather? Amit? So he says if Phillip Rivers wants to come back, which there's rumblings that Phillip Rivers has been staying. Well, Phillip Rivers said, I've been staying ready. I've got 100 kids, and they're driving me nuts, so I've just been playing football and practicing throwing with my weird motion. And the Colts would be a great fit for him just to go back, right, and take over for the injured Carson Wentz. But Amit says if Phillip Rivers wants to come back, should the Vikings sign him based on the current COVID situation with Kirk Cousins and the tension between Mike Zimmer? Listen, as a Phillip Rivers stan, I love me some Phillip Rivers, and so I'm all for this. It would create wild, uncomfortable tension with the Vikings.
Yes.
But what do you guys think?
I think he's only going to come back if he can start, right? I don't think he'd come back to be a backup. So if Kirk got sick and was lost for an extended period of time, I think that's a potential thing. I'm actually surprised that with Carson Wentz out for 5 to 12 weeks, he doesn't go back there. Go back to the Colts, dude.
Yeah.
You know the offense.
They're also ready to win. Like they just have a really good roster.
The only problem is they lost Wentz to a weird foot injury that I guess he suffered in high school and it finally broke. And days after, Quentin Nelson, their outstanding guard, same injury.
Turf monsters.
And he was born with it and it broke. So he's out 5 to 12 weeks too. So perhaps your guy, who's a very smart guy, said, I'm pretty old, and that guard's really good. And without that guard, I think I'll just stay retired with my 14 kids and my high school coaching job.
Speaking of guards, I'm going to withhold my negativity here because we're only 2 items through Judd's 3 positive things this week during an otherwise tumultuous week of Vikings camp. So you've named Irv Smith, the D.D. Westbrook third wide receiver situation. All right, what's the third one?
The third one is the fact that without much fanfare, I have seen nothing, and it's been 2 padded practices now. Now, Anthony Barr didn't practice today, and since the Vikings don't talk about injuries during training camp, we don't know why. But the good news is this. Through practice so far, Danielle Hunter looks to be fine, which is
That's actually huge.
Massive.
Yeah.
Which is massive. And I mean, I think I sent Dex this today for the Twitter account. Mm-hmm. In the one-on-ones, Brian O'Neill's not a bad player, right? Like, he's their best tackle. He's a pretty good player.
Mm-hmm. Solid.
I think, Dex, you probably saw this. Yep. Danielle Hunter, at one point, made O'Neill look like he was 12 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, Daniil's ready to feed, as I like to say. Daniil Hunter is absolutely ready to feed.
Feed me.
He is ready to
more.
Feed. I believe I saw even, too, like, because these Madden ratings keep coming out, right? Like, for all the position players and all this stuff. Actually, I think Brian O'Neill checked in at, like, number 10 in terms of right tackles on Madden, which does say a little bit about how good of a player he is. He is a solid player. You're right. He's a solid player. He should get a contract extension possibly, maybe even the summer before the season starts. But yeah, it looks like Daniil is ready to feast on some quarterbacks, and I'm excited for him to get after a few of them in the NFC North.
So those are 3 incredibly, I think, positive things.
Yeah. Yep. I think I'll add another one here too. Christian Darrisaw practiced for the first time since being drafted. Yeah. I don't know if I almost feel like that's been, I wouldn't say like underreported because I think it's been reported, but like it's been under talked about. They drafted him and everyone's just sort of penciled him in as the starting left tackle because he's a first round pick. He literally didn't practice in minicamp, OTAs, or the first week of training camp. And so today he's recovering from that core surgery. So today was the first time, and you tell us how much he did, but this is the first time he mixed in at practice. And can he now get up to speed? He's been studying, he's been in the meetings, and it's not like he's just joining the team for the first time, but like he's got 1 month to get himself in physical playing condition as a rookie to start at left tackle. Otherwise, it's Rashad Hill or somebody else.
So there's good and bad news to this story. The good news is that Darrisaw came out full pads. He really did nothing. Like he got it in the pass set or in the blocking set for some drills, but he didn't play first team. He didn't do much. He sort of just felt his way in to practicing, which is fine. Here's the weird thing. For the second time in 3 days, Rashad Hill didn't practice. And Rashad Hill, I guess, came out early, did some stuff, and went inside. And at one point today with the first team, the Vikings had a guy by the name of Blake Brandel.
Ross Brendel?
Blake Brandel was the first team left tackle. Dakota Dozier was playing right guard. And then here's the weird thing. So at one point they rotated Drew Samia back out to tackle. So Samia was back at tackle. And that gave Dakota Dozier even more snaps at right guard. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is the first team offensive line is a massive, in some ways, work in progress, which is not great. And keep in mind, too, the problem, I hate to go negative, but I will. The problem with this is, so Cousins hasn't practiced since Friday, and he's got to get used to his line. Mm-hmm. The line is contingent in some ways on being cohesive. And they've got, Drew Samia playing guard 1 snap, tackle 1 snap, Rashad Hill playing tackle, and then he's out. Blake Brandel, as Dex said, Ross Brendel playing tackle. So the cohesiveness of the line becomes a big concern. But I don't see in Zimmer's world, guys, how on earth Darrisaw is going to start the season. So like, wow. I'm not saying wow. He can't start at some point in time, but I mean, he's coming off core surgery, I believe, in January. Phil, you're right. Today's the first day that he actually took the practice field and didn't do much. And they've got 3 preseason games, so he'll start to play, I would guess, eventually. But Mike doesn't exactly embrace rookies, and this would be a big step to go from today just being padded up and doing almost nothing to in Cincinnati starting at left tackle in that game.
Hey, Allie says, I haven't heard one report about the long snapping situation. I'm on pins and needles. What's your long snapping scouting report from training camp, Judd?
What do you got for us, Judd?
Well, Dex, you've seen a ton of this because I have purposely sent you, because it's so important to me. I have sent you a ton of Greg Joseph field goal attempts.
Yep.
The snaps have looked fine.
The
holds have looked pretty good.
Okay.
Yesterday the kicks, I think he was 5 of 6. Today did not go as well. There was one that 50 yards or so that was wide left and short. I was sort of a little bit concerned because today post practice, Greg Joseph got the old T thing out, and he put the ball in there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about,
that contraption. It's not a T, but it's the thing that holds the ball.
I used it at the Super Bowl experience 3 years ago when I pushed one wide left from 30 yards. Had the distance, by the way, but just pushed it wide left.
Wow, nice.
Had the distance.
Anyways, so the last guy that I recall getting that contraption out and basically going to it was Bailey a few years ago. But the long snapping, I think, is fine.
I'm trying to find, I'm just going to, a cheap plug here, the Score North TikTok account to look for any of the latest Greg Joseph kicking videos here. We're up to 345 followers on TikTok. We just started posting stuff a week ago. So if you're not following Judd's great videography from training camp, you can find it on the Score North TikTok and Instagram accounts. All right, let's just start answering people's questions here. We're getting comments from people on the Purple Daily YouTube page. We had one up there a second ago. John Hubdub said, honestly, it's hilarious to see Vikings fans and media panic over every single inconvenience that happens. John, listen, man, I don't know if you're a young Vikings fan. I think what you're seeing here is a man on the right side of the picture here, or if you're listening, a man on the right side of your dial, okay, your phone, who has been around since 1969 drinking Surly's, even though they're much newer than that. And he has seen a lot of devastation with the Vikings. Declan and I grew up 90s, 2000s, we've seen a lot of devastation too. So maybe this is our fault and our problem, but the first thing we think of when things start to go bad is, oh my God, train wreck on the horizon, not, here's all the reference points we have of the Vikings overcoming adverse situations, right? They haven't exactly shown a blueprint in the past for overcoming adverse situations. So maybe it's us. Maybe we're over panicking on some of this stuff, but I don't know, man. I was
a couple Celsius in a few hours ago on our Twitter page, and I'm panicking. I told you on Monday. You guys kind of laughed a little bit that I said I'm starting to panic. How do we feel 48 hours after my initial panic video, or statement I should have said on Weekend Statements from Mackie and Judd on Monday? Now it's been 48 hours. I mean, if you want to join my club of panic, by all means, please do it. But I'm starting to freak out. I think
Phil just left the show.
Yeah, and I think Phil's gone. Phil has just decided, Phil said, nope, I'm all done. No more tequila left here in Nashville, or no more, I should say, bourbon or whiskey left in Nashville. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a second. I heard a crack, and that wasn't Judd Zolgaz, Surly Furious either. And raise you one? Yeah. Okay. See?
Surly's all around tonight.
Pour it on. The ace.
Pour it on,
ace
fellas.
Of my pitching staff.
Pour it on.
Surly Furious. Declan, the problem is this. So it's fun for us to talk about these things, and it's fun to panic or not panic. You know what? I mean, inconvenience. The problem is, and I actually stopped. If you're watching this on YouTube today at Fan HQ in Ridgedale to get my Mike Zimmer doll. The problem is this guy is panicked.
Why'd they make him? They made him ripped. Does he have a 6-pack abs?
Because you know why?
What? He got final approval over that.
Yes, it's the Mike Zimmer Foundation. My purchase was a donation.
He looks like Ryan Gosling. Is that what Mike? Is that what Mike Zimmer sees in the mirror every morning?
So here's the best part. It goes back that we've got the COVID-approved mask as well.
Dude, that's awesome.
So the mask goes on.
I honestly love that.
So yes,
that's probably irritates a lot of our listeners, but I love it.
But damn well worth it. The problem is he's panicked too. You could tell. So here's what I can't decide. Today's practice, and Phil, you for sure have seen this before too, and it's sort of hard to read it. Today's practice was either we're a week in the training camp and 2 days in the pads malaise, because the practice was awful. Like, it looked really bad. Or it's just a tension of, oh my God, our quarterback's not here. Jake Browning. And by the way, I mean, the Jake Browning story is a great story, but like at some point in time when it's day after day of Jake, and Kirk is supposed to be back tomorrow, it hits the team that, oh my God, this guy's our quarterback right now.
Yeah.
And you've got these two poor kids who have been brought in who can barely throw passes. And I mean, they were sailing balls, and I felt bad for them. So I couldn't decide if it was a malaise a week into camp or an actual sort of being hit with the reality. Because keep in mind too, and Phil, in 2010, as things went wrong, and 2009, as things went wrong and then corrected, you had the feeling at different times, because of the expectations on those teams, that there's a sense of sort of dread and panic when it's not going right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not the same as, well, we're expected to be good, but who knows, right? Like, if we're good, it'll be fun. And if we're not, well, no surprise. This team has expectations, and this team has, and here's the one thing. I would say my quarterback week to week being an unknown is not an inconvenience. An inconvenience would be somebody being dinged up. This is not an inconvenience.
Yeah, it's a massive hurdle. Now they have a month to fix some of this stuff, right? If Darisaw starts to look really good in practice, I would say honestly, like, I don't want to turn this into a vaccination show, but if Kirk gets a vaccine and he's no longer going to be in question as much from week to week, because you got to keep in mind, it's not just about him getting COVID. It's about if he comes into contact with anyone who has COVID, he has to sit out a minimum of 5 days, right? So it's like, could that happen 3 or 4 times in a season? So if that gets rectified and he's just more available. I mean, Ryan Tannehill came out and said, I think one of you guys, was it Dex? One of you guys sent a tweet.
Same thing.
And we'll probably talk more about this on tomorrow's Thursday show. But like, he said, I wasn't going to get the vaccine, but when I saw the NFL protocols come out, I had to be committed to my team. And so I didn't want to miss any time. And so I got the vaccine solely because I want to be a team player, right? I mean, that's what Patrick Peterson's saying too. And so now Kirk hasn't spoken yet. Kirk will speak at some point this week, probably tomorrow. He's back at practice tomorrow. So we'll see. But, if this thing gets into the regular season and Christian Darisaw is not ready to rock at left tackle and Kirk Cousins isn't vaxxed, there's going to be lingering major questions at the two, not the two, but like two of the biggest offensive positions for the Vikings.
If you have to worry about Kirk every week, which right now you would, I don't see how you get past that. Like, there's only enough mental bandwidth distraction wise to be like, that's fine. We'll put that aside. But if you have to worry that your quarterback every week might not play and Jake Browning is your backup, that's going to weigh heavily and wear people down. And today people felt like that weight was starting to get to them. And as I just saw a comment, they haven't played a preseason game yet. Like, you can't be here. Football is too hellish of sport to be like, well, we'll just roll with this one. Yeah. You can't have everything go against you and just be like, that's fine. If Jake Browning has to play a game, I'm sorry, it's Armageddon.
Yeah. Yep, and he's shown up very nicely for the backup quarterback spot, but there's a big difference between handling the load at a Saturday night camp practice and facing the 49ers or whatever. Like you said that. We're taking your questions, we're taking your comments on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. And like Greg L says, if you're watching us right now, click the subscribe button, and then in return, we'll give you daily Vikings entertainment. Also, anywhere you find podcasts, Purple Daily. And hit that thumbs up button. Let's get this thing spread around the internet for fellow Vikings fans so that they can also partake in this community that we've created. Oh, did we mention that Purple Daily was nominated as a finalist for a National Marconi Award? Yeah, so we're pretty pumped about that. We're pumped. Let's see. What else can we? I'm just sort of speeding through some of these comments
here.
We
got some comments. Come on, folks.
We have all kinds.
Standing in the sun every day for you.
A lot of Kirk and Mond stuff that we've already sort of gotten into here. Is it any? Go ahead, Dex.
About to say, did you guys see this? Because I saw this as well on The Athletic. But did you see that the Vikings possibly have the number one defense could have the number one defense going into 2021.
So, all right, I like this notion because I think this is one of those where if everything works out perfectly, like it did in 2017, on paper, this could be true. If Hunter is fully back, plays a full season, if they can get the right mix of Michael Pierce, Dalvin Tomlinson, Sheldon Richardson to get pressure on the quarterback in the middle, it's going to be kind of a 3-man rotation. And then let's say DJ Wanham steps up and becomes a viable, right? If their defensive line, if everything works out there, it's going to be ferocious.
Yep. If
Patrick Peterson can revert back to like 2 or 3 years ago, Patrick Peterson, which, hey, he could. Mike Zimmer's a great defensive and cornerback mind. And then I think if everyone stays healthy, like if Eric Kendricks is healthy and Harrison Smith, if all of those things go right, and I don't know what the percentage chance of that, like it's a low percentage chance that everything goes right? Because it's the NFL and things happen, injuries happen, age catches up with guys. But if everything goes right, I could see this being definitely one of, if not the best defenses in the NFL.
So I think the one thing about this thing is I think this defense is going to be, I think they're going to get more creative than they previously did. Zim definitely has his defensive principles, right? Like he's got his beliefs, which is fine. I mean, hell, he's been really good. But I think they're going to get creative. I think so. Andre Patterson, who is the co-defensive coordinator with Mike's kid, spoke today, and he is really good. Like he coached. I think he was also the defensive line coach with Denny. He's coached for a bunch of teams. But he was talking about what the defense is going to do. And for instance, speaking about Sheldon Richardson, he talked about the fact that Sheldon's going to play in the base defense too. Like I think Michael Pierce, who's still not back at full strength, and Dalvin Tomlinson are going to start per se. But I mean, in this league, that means nothing. I think Richardson's going to play more than we probably expect, which is really good because he can get after the quarterback. So far, a guy who wears 96, defensive tackle Armin Watts, big guy, younger, looks really good. Mm-hmm. They're going to have this defensive line is going to be much improved. Like
they have enough options. Like they have enough options, right?
The right end position, a little bit of a concern, but if Daniil can play, can switch at times, I just think that you're going to see these guys get far more creative. And the one thing with Peterson is I think they're smart enough to put Peterson in position to succeed, which I would argue that they didn't do for Rhodes 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like Rhodes was unplayable at times in 2019, went to the Colts in 20 and actually played well. And that's partially based on where he's asked to play and what style. And I think they'd be far more likely now, probably having learned some lessons, to put Patrick Peterson in a position to succeed than saying, okay, just go out there and play. So I do have confidence that they are going to, and took a lot of time during the summer to sort of refigure how the defense approaches things. And I would go into the season pretty confident that they will be top 10. And I think for them to be as successful as they should be, it's going to be bordering, if not in the top 5. Mm-hmm.
I think that it's safe to assume that they need to be in the top 10 for them to be successful. Last year, let's just look at what happened. They didn't have anyone on the defensive line. I'll give you that. They had 0 people on the defensive line. And I kind of said, even when Daniil Hunter went out, well, Mike Zimmer's a good enough coach. He can get creative. He can figure out ways to deploy guys. Remember, Daniil Hunter didn't start for his first 2 years in the NFL, and he was used strategically, and he morphed him into the player he is today. So I kind of thought, well, they'll figure out ways to still be able to be at least a competent defense. And obviously, Daniil was out. You lost Eric Kendricks for 5 games. 2 rookies basically had to start 16 games last season. Anthony Harris completely fell off the cliff because of that as well. There was a lot of trickling down factors. But when I look at it, at the end of the day, last year the Vikings were 30th in points allowed, right? Or excuse me, 29th in points allowed. Mm-hmm. Yep. I just don't see how you literally make a jump from 29th to even 10th in one season, even with things coming back and things going ahead. It kind of reminds me of, yes, there are times in it, like hockey, when goaltending is so volatile, and I'm not going to try to compare NFL defenses to a position like goaltending. I just don't see how one position can go from 29th to top 10th basically overnight, even with a defensive-minded coach and Mike Zimmer.
Well, the only way that you would do it is if you literally overhauled everyone who played on the 29th ranked defense and hit on all the replacements, which is what they're trying. That's what they're trying to do. Like they're trying to say, all right, well, some of them were injured and just didn't play, and then some they just cleared out. Hey, AJ comments here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. How is Nwangu looking so far? The speedy scatback from the draft.
Public service announcement right now, okay, as I sip on my surly. Ladies and gentlemen, the Twitter account for Score North.
Yep.
I have been feeding Declan, and Declan has been doing a masterful job of posting a ton of stuff of highlights, okay?
I'm a millennial. I need the praise, so thank you.
Yes, and I sent Declan one today of Kane, and I'm going to tell you this right now. He is fast as hell and can turn the corner. And it looked, and he looks good. I mean, this guy can motor, and it's somewhat. What's the word I'm looking for? Somewhat seamless. It's very fluid. So he looks great. But I'm telling you right now, if you want in progress highlights from TCO, check out our Twitter account because Dex is doing a magnificent. I'll say that magnificent job of getting stuff posted as quickly as possible.
The executive producer. Of Purple Daily and Mackie and Judd.
I'm sending him clips, but he's getting them up there.
Yeah. Question Everything says, love Zolgad. He's like the cool uncle. I think about 100 people have accused all three of us of being high tonight. And I can assure you, not tonight.
In the words of Herb Brooks,
tonight.
Not this game, not tonight.
A bruise on the thigh is a long way from the heart.
Candy.
Do I look high? Like I might be getting buzzed, but I'm definitely
Someone said to me, they were really accusing me of some harder core drugs earlier in the comments, and let me just say, I don't dabble in those, folks. I like my tequila and I like my elixirs, but come on.
You're a skinny guy, but you're a skinny guy, so
just because I look like it. Yeah, I understand.
But I mean, I think assumptions are being made.
Just because Declan looks like he does hardcore drugs, does
just
he?
because I look like early season Chandler from Friends does not mean I'm partaking in the same things Chandler did in the early seasons.
Let's just say Declan looks like, and he doesn't, but he looks like a guy who would enjoy a snowstorm.
Could you be any more high?
I'm not talking about weed.
I know you weren't.
I look like a guy that might smoke weed. I just don't. And by the way, if you do, that's cool. I just don't.
Hey, Noodle 130 here, and we'll do a couple more here, and then we'll wrap because we've got to save some of this gold material here, this Marconi finalist worthy material for tomorrow's show as well. Noodle 130 says Jake Browning for Mr. Mankato. Right now, what would be like your top 3 power rankings from what you've seen? I mean, it's Jake Browning, probably number 1 right now in the power rankings.
Not
right?
Probably, he is one. Like by the fact that he's thrown 847 passes in the past 4 days. Okay, top 4 from Mr. Mankato. I would say Declan's guy because I've seen enough from him where I'm impressed. Like he looks good. He'd be up there. I'm trying to think of who else we have in the mix for it.
KJ Osborne's been an absolute stud.
And
KJ Osborne.
Okay.
He's a favorite.
So I would say
he's probably first or second.
Osborne probably won, although the Browning thing you could probably debate. I'll put Browning 2 and Dex's guy 3.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Where's my guy? Where's the Mankato kid? Has he caught a pass yet?
Zylstra.
You know
Zylstra?
What? I'm gonna say this for him. Great mini camp. I think you and I, Phil, are. I don't think we're in good shape.
Hey, sometimes you have really good mini camps, and it progresses to training camp. And I'm using this in life in general, and it doesn't translate.
Ryan, I appreciate your input. I would not put the
Smith Marset.
He's making nice catches, but I wouldn't put him third.
ISM. Are we calling him ISM or just Smith Marset? I think that might have been a phone typo there. Marsettle.
I think he might
autocorrect there.
I think he might make the roster if they do what they did last year, which is out of training camp, keep 7 receivers.
Bob H332 says, "Are the Case Cookus jerseys available yet?" Did I get to write that down? Did he throw a pass in team drill today?
The other guy did for sure. I don't know if Case did or not. Okay. But you know what? The new quarterbacks, bravo to Bob H's point, had their names on the back of their red jerseys today, which is more than I could say for them yesterday.
Boy, that's a clutch performance by whoever had to get that stitched
Dennis
or
Ryan,
pressed on, right?
Longtime equipment man. He is outstanding.
Good for
One
him,
of the best
man.
in the biz. St. Paul guy.
Yeah. So now we've got now Quang is like we're being accused of being on hardcore drugs tonight. I'm not on crack. That was Judd.
No.
Are you?
I almost just made an inappropriate joke about one of Judd's old coworkers, but I am above that, and so
don't
I
be
will
doing
not do that.
This is a day of celebration, not a day to reflect
Day of celebration.
on.
It's a celebration.
Why don't you cook us some of what you? Okay, that's good.
Oh my gosh! All right, let's shut this down. Let's shut this down because tomorrow we've got
You know
another
what?
episode of Purple
Purple
Daily.
After Dark is turning into exactly what it should.
Yeah,
Just an obnoxious amount of inappropriate comments.
yeah, and that would be the Marconi finalist Purple After Dark here
That's right.
on Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing and Mike Zimmer's bobblehead with a COVID face shield. That pretty much sums up the Vikings the
does,
last
dude.
year and a half right there.
God.
So,
Right, mean streets.
all right, Daily Vikings Entertainment. It's Mackie, it's Judd, it's the executive producer, Declan Goff. Thanks for hanging with us here live on Purple After Dark. I got this one, Dex. No, you go ahead. You go ahead. You go ahead.